Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Ewan, and I'm with Athena Dynamics. Today, we've got a webinar titled Modern DFIR Approaches for Effective Malware Investigations. Now, this isn't one of those usual, death by PowerPoint slides. It's a very, very informal learning session. We've got people from all over the region, Singapore, Malaysia, as far as Saudi Arabia as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to make this really informal. What that means is as we go through each of the speakers, if you've got any questions you'd like to ask, anything that you want to clarify about the demo, about the UX, or even about what Binalize can help in your day-to-day, we are here to help. So this session is going to be broken up into 5 small, simple parts. We're going to have an introduction with the CEO of Athena Dynamics, Ken So, who will share a bit about how Binalize and Athena got together with Black Panda to bring this to life. We then hand the mic over to Melina Paton, the advisor for Binalize, who will share just a bit about the current global perspective for malware. From there, we then hand the mic over to Julie Kabuhat from Black Panda, a DFIR specialist. So someone who's got the day-to-day use of this, and she's going to be sharing about local attacks. I know a lot of you are excited about listening about the local attacks part, which is why you're here, as well as APEC perspectives for the malware landscape. And there's going to be 2 examples of local attacks. Now, after this portion, you're going to be wondering about how you can incorporate the platform into your day-to-day flow. And that's what Tim Thorne is going to be doing all the way in from the UK. He's going to be showing you in very simple, practical terms how to investigate malware using modern DFIR techniques. I'm going to spend just about 10 minutes on this so you get a feel for how the platform can go into your day-to-day workflow. Finally, we will do a Q&A in which we will select some of the questions from the audience to put it to any of the speakers that you'd like to hear from. So without further ado, let's welcome CEO for Athena Dynamics, Ken So, to the audience. Ken, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ewan. And I think first and foremost, thank you everyone for joining us. Truly appreciate your time. Welcome to this learning and sharing experience. And I'm very sure and very confident that time will be well spent. Just like when I recall, first time I came to know about Binalize, it was truly a very, very enriching learning experience because I learned a few things. First, why would EDR, XDR, MDR not really an most efficient platform for DFIR, digital forensic and incident response? And then on top of that, I learned how specialized DFIR platform could shrink, the effort required to work on each incident from 3 weeks to just minutes. That was astonishing, in fact, the discovery. And hence, in a nutshell, I learned that in DFIR it's so important to use specialized tools and not just those scanning tools or monitoring tools to target precisely the golden artifacts during incidents, which I sometimes term it as wartime. Right. So today with these 3 companies, the combination is, I think, is just very fitting. We have the product principal experts here. We have the users. Product principal is in Binalize. We have the user practitioner or MSSP SOC Black Panda here, which is riding on the strength of Binalize to provide very quality and responsive service to the markets. And for us, Athena Dynamics has been focusing on disruptive propositions just like Binalize that we bring forth to the market so far. So I don't want to stand too long in between you and the exciting time. And without further ado, welcome everybody, and let's open the webinar.
Cool. Thank you so much, Ken. Great intro. So we've got Melina Paton up next. She's part of the founding launch team for Binalize, and she looks after the Singapore launch market as well as Australia and Japan as well. And what she's going to do is she's going to give us a global perspective for malware. Melina, over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Iwan. Thank you, Ken, Iwan, for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Happy to be here together in this learning sharing session. Few logistics before we move with our session and context about global malware overview. I would like to check that everyone hears me well and everyone is able to see the screen. May I check if you guys are able to see the screen? Great. And also can hear me well. Perfect. I'll just spend 2-3 minutes to give you a quick overview about the global malware context, which I think most of you, cybersecurity professionals, are aware of. Also, Binalize comes from a mindset that companies and individuals at a point in time they will be breached. Assuming that we as companies or individuals are not going to be breached is not realistic. So we started to develop our platform, Binalize Air, Binalize Automated Incident Response, from this philosophy that companies need more than the current technologies which they are using. Like Ken was mentioning, EDR, MDR, XDR, they are not enough anymore to protect companies from the current malware context. So to give you just few data points from different IBM or other global reports, IDC and so on, you can see here that the average cost of the data breach last year has increased significantly, up to 5.1 million compared to 4.5 million in previous year. So we see this trend increasing year by year. And again, the total, few important data points to mention. The total malware attacks have been exceeding 5.4 billion in 2022, and then from 2022 every year the percentage of increase in total malware numbers is growing close to 40-45%. Not only the number of malware attacks is increasing, but also the complexity. So we see a lot of complexity in terms of the data breaches that different companies face. And most of the affected industry are the industries who have or are handling sensitive data like healthcare, finance, banking, government, telco, education, and so on. And the impact of malware is not only in one specific business area, but it cuts across the entire enterprise, starting from the financial stability of these financial companies that I was mentioning earlier, then business operational continuity, data security, data confidentiality, especially when it comes to government, education, healthcare, very sensitive industries to data monitoring. So again, the cost of data breaches is cutting across the entire enterprise, and it's really impacting different business units, and it has a long effect over many years, not only a short period of time. What we see here is that the average total dwell time, it's really huge. It takes about 133 days to detect a breach and 74 to resolve. This comes from the most recent data breach report from IBM. So although companies are investing so much in the technologies that we were mentioning earlier, it seems that it's not effective, it's not enough. So either the technologies need to advance, or companies need to protect themselves better by technology plus maybe training, awareness, and so on. And we will show how Binalize can support in this effort through the demo that my colleague Tim is going to show. Now, once detected, a breach takes about 26 days to investigate and 17 days to resolve. Again, huge time. So not only the time to detect and resolve, but also the investigation and resolution time is is really significant. So it is not something rare or uncommon. Most of the companies who have been facing this kind of data breaches over the past 3-4 years are seeing an impact in their critical infrastructure. And this is the area where, from a technology standpoint, our digital forensics and incident platform can add tremendous value to companies across different industries and across different business units. And don't take my words for granted. I would also like to invite everyone in the call today, and also your team members, to have a look at the Binalize website. I hope you can see the slide with binalize.com website. There is a 14 days Binalize free trial, which is extremely easy to be accessed. There is a simple button that you can access, and you get a 14 days Binalize AR free trial. And of course, our team is ready to meet either in person or virtually any companies who would like to know more about Binalize and how we can support you locally or globally in different parts of the world. Hope this was useful, and I would like to pass the mic back to Ewan, who will introduce Julie. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melina. So everyone, do remember, if there's one thing we would love is for you to, after this session, go to the Binalize website. There is a very easy to fill in form for a 14-day air-free trial. We're not just going to give you a manual to go study to do it yourself. Our cyber consultants will be hand-holding you through this process, and happy to answer any questions you might have. Our next speaker coming up is Black Panda's Julie Kabuhat. She's going to be sharing with us some of the very good learnings that she's had as a practitioner. So she does this day in and day out, and she's going to be talking about 2 local attacks, as well as how this has really benefited in her day-to-day flow. Julie, over to you.
Thank you so much, Ewan. I hope everyone can hear me as well.
Beautiful.
Could people see my screen? I shared my own screen. Is that
Gamsi,
working?
can you pull up Julie's screen? Yep.
Okay.
Mm.
So again, hi guys. This is going to be very quick. So again, a few minutes isn't enough to talk about things technically, but we do welcome your Q&A afterwards. So I'm Julie. I've been working in the cybersecurity field for a little over 10 years now, and I've been doing pure DFIR across the region in various industries for the last 6. So I've been focusing on Singapore and the Asia-Pac region for the last 4 years. I'm part of a team that handles things in the front lines, so to speak. So if you have an incident response retainer, I'm one of the people you talk to when you pick up the phone and you do your triage. I'm part of the team that gets you through incident confirmation, incident containment, and then gives you the full investigation report. I'm here to give you a quick local perspective on cyber threats, which is somehow synonymous to what we see on the malware scheme locally. So these are the latest numbers available from Singapore Cybersecurity Agency. So CSA publishes a yearly cyber landscape roundup around mid-year. So the one for 2023 should be published around Q3 this year. So this is the latest numbers that we have. Now, statistics from government agencies in general have always been on the more conservative side. So just because these need to be reported rather than detected. So that, for example, in 10 cases that we handle, we see 7 reporting to CSA. We see a lot of them firsthand reporting to SPF. We see these numbers getting better, but then again, these numbers are on the conservative side, and then take into consideration also that these are only numbers for Singapore. We have here cases on phishing incidents, infected infrastructure, most commonly known as botnets, website defacements, and ransomware cases. Now, for us at Black Panda, most cases that we do investigations on need to either have material effect on operations. This means a big disruption or legal implications, like customer data being leaked, PII data being leaked or breached. Now, in terms of the landscape, what we always see are the numbers. whether they're rising, stagnant, which is what we see now. The numbers are somehow stagnant on all four fronts. Now, this only tells us as investigators that we have guaranteed jobs for the next few years. But what is harder to quantify is, and what these numbers doesn't really show, is how complex the investigations of these cases are getting. Now, what I can tell as someone who has been in the front lines for a while is how challenging investigations for cases have been getting. When we respond to ransomware cases, more often than not, we would find evidence of other things such as botnet, phishing, crypto miners, backdoors, trojans. When these is reported, it's only reported as a ransomware case. Everything else, all the other malware artifacts, all the other kinds of techniques aren't really reflected. So, and this is for your typical SME. These are not even for your big enterprises. This is the kind of landscape that we are dealing with right now. We see more threat actors organized, which means the malware that they are deploying, the tactics that they use, they need some sort of expertise when they are operating. So it only makes sense that your defenses have some sort of person behind them as well. Here are the top three challenges that we have faced just in the past year. Now, by no means are these challenges only seen in the region. They're just more prevalent based on our experience in handling cases. Rapid evolving technology. So a ransomware case in 2018 looks drastically different, even if the impact, like file encryption, stays the same. The scope has gotten drastically bigger. So when I was handling one of my first IR cases in 2018, my background was in malware reversing. It was enough. The base requirement to do DFIR is knowledge in host forensics and a little bit of network forensics. Compare that to a ransomware case that we have handled last month that needed a lot of host forensics, network forensics, and cloud forensics at the minimum. So these technologies, these are just fields. We're not even talking about the subfields or the niches of these. So we actually need to keep up. The technology and organization infrastructure is changing really, really fast. And when things move too fast, the highly regulated industries like finance, they tend to catch up fast. But industries like manufacturing and retail are actually left behind. And this is evidenced by the most affected industries by ransomware in Singapore in 2022. We see manufacturing and retail are the most targeted just because they're the ones that can't keep up with the rapid pace of technology evolving on the threat actor side as well. In the early days of IR, my only obligation as a DFIR specialist would be to analyze the evidence and churn out a report. Purely technical. I appreciate laws and regulations because it is needed and it does tend to advance the field. But it is a challenge when handling multi-country incidents, specifically in Asia. Now, there are different report times and thresholds that needs to be considered. There are some regulators that want some form of threat actor at between like 48 hours. There are also cases in the Asian market, for example, a hypothetical customer that we have investigated on, which had presence in Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines, which had all different regulatory times for different kinds of information. This only means for us as investigators that we need to work faster to actually fulfill our legal and regulatory obligations, especially in one of the most affected sectors, which is retail. Even if we are dealing with an Asia Pacific case, there are instances where GDPR would kick in. So hypothetically, in another hypothetical case, if this retail customer actually keeps tabs of their EU customers, and that database is actually located in Asia, it hits the minimum number of records. It's actually reportable. For me, as an investigator, that would mean reprioritizing the investigation flow to meet the deadlines. And not to mention, it would take more time to prepare reports for different regulators. I know, I know that for most people in our background, in our field, like we are in this to do the analysis and investigations and not so much of the reporting. So anything that could cut the time that it takes for me to do the reporting, boring stuff, repeatable stuff, would be very much welcome. Next one is timeliness and rapid response. So this ties into the challenges presented by rapidly evolving technology. And it is also affected by the diverse legal and regulatory landscape as well. So right now, as investigators, we are expected to go through double the amount of logs and host data in the same amount of time. So our timelines don't move no matter what happens. When it comes to actually using tools such as EDRs for investigations, our initial stance is you don't use the tool that got you breached in the first place to do investigations off the bat. There needs to be some sort of clearance. But we are always working with a very tight deadline. So you need something that is easily deployable, that easily collects evidence, that gives you that information faster. And this is where I think Binalize comes in to actually help us bridge this gap. Um, these are the very high level challenges that we have encountered on handling Asia Pacific threats. I would be happy to pass it on to Ewan to introduce Tim for the demonstration. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Julie. Really, really good context that's been put for all of us here. The next person we've got, and the final person actually, is Tim Thorne. Tim comes from a very, very rich background, 30 years with the UK Metropolitan Police, and with other strong tech companies before joining the Binalize team. So as chief product evangelist, he's going to be sharing just a little bit about what you can look forward to when you do your trial. As Melina mentioned a moment ago, go to our website, sign up for the 14-day trial. We will be here, our cyber consultants, to take you through step by step how to use the tool easily at a time that's convenient for you. Tim, over to you.
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Hopefully the screen is sharing. Could I get some sort of confirmation for that?
Perfect.
Oh, that's great. What a relief, because we were struggling with that before. But great news. Here we are. So thanks for that. And it's kind of interesting for me to listen to the real world examples there from Julie, because this is where Binalize does step in with that speed and that ability to deliver results quickly and in a timely fashion. So our overall ambition is to help people like Julie solve these investigations within that 4-hour time frame, rather than the days or sometimes weeks it takes to get there with the current offerings. And also, that's the first time I've heard this verbalized, but I like the way in which she explained that it's important to perhaps not use the system that flagged there was a problem to investigate the problem. Perhaps use a tool that's specifically designed, a platform like ours, to get you to the deep inside the investigation, which of course is where you need to be with some of these forensic investigations. So I'm just going to give you a very high level overview of how we would do that at speed. This view at the moment that you can see is the dashboard to the AIR platform, and we're looking at the home page. And what we're looking at is everything is in specific relation to this organization. So I'm actually, it's a multi-tenant environment, but I'm looking at everything to do with an organization which is named compromised organization. And as I say, we're on the home page here. So in the main menu on the left-hand side, I can see we're in the home page. If I wanted to look at the assets associated with this organization, I simply select the next button below. And here I have a listing of all of the assets within compromised organization. And you can see I have a vast selection of different types of physical asset here, some Windows machines, a Mac machine, and further down I can see I've got some cloud-based assets as well. If I wanted to look at an individual asset and some of the things I could do with an individual asset, I would just simply select it here. This one, for instance, say called Jack White. And once I'm inside the asset, I can see all sorts of information about the actual asset itself, its IP address, and over here on the right-hand side, the kind of what's going on with it right now, the CPU usage, the memory usage, and the disk space usage. However, what I'm really going to be interested in is what can I do to that particular asset? If I was just casually investigating it right now. If I come to this action button here on the up in the left-hand side, these are all of the things I could do with that individual asset. So I can acquire evidence from it. I can acquire a disk image from it. That's a volume or a disk image. I can run Yara, OS query, or Sigma scripts across this asset. I can auto asset tag it. So I can, when I deploy my responder to this particular asset, it will automatically tag it based on the category of asset it is. So there's a lot of features here, and unfortunately 15 minutes doesn't give me enough time to talk about exactly what we can do with all of these. But what I wanted to show you is actually how we do this at scale and in response to those EDR alerts, for instance. So Binalize Air platform works and integrates with many platforms, and some of you may have spotted already there's an integrations button over here in the main menu. What this means is I can use API tokens. So we have a very open API for people to make use of so they can integrate directly within their existing security platforms. Or I can use webhooks. So if I select webhooks, for instance, you can see that listed here are all of the webhooks that are available here. If I wanted to add a new webhook to my, my installation of the console, I simply click the action button again. And over here on the right-hand side, I can go ahead and I can choose another webhook. So if I select in this drop down here, you can see these are all of the out-of-the-box currently supported webhooks, including things like Cortex, CrowdStrike, Lima Charlie, Microsoft Sentinel-1. There's 20 or so to select from, and this is a list that, like so many things in our platform, is growing at the moment as we evolve. We're adding, based on customer feedback, we're adding the most important to individuals in respect of features, and webhooks being one of those features. You can see that right there. So what this gives us the ability to do is integrate with existing security solutions, so that when one of those EDRs throws up an alert, we can immediately respond to that alert automatically. So this could happen at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you could use your alert system to tell Binalize to go ahead and carry out one of these functions. For instance, if we take a quick look, go back to our libraries here on the left-hand side, if we decided that every time our EDR threw up a particular type of alert, we wanted it to deploy a particular type of collection profile, we would have our collection profiles are saved in the libraries, and you can build your own collection profiles. For instance, if I wanted to build very quickly a Windows collection profile, I could do that choosing from my evidence list, some 109 Windows artifacts that I can select to be collected from. And if I scroll down this list here of items, you can see that this covers pretty much all of the important items that you would want in respect of a cybersecurity incident that you're investigating. Things such as registry items, or if you're going in even harder on this particular investigation, you probably would like to get a copy of the RAM. You can collect browser images. And then we have various other categories of artifact that you might want to collect, things like the master file table. What you'll notice here is that with the master file table, for instance, what we do is one of the clever ways in which we help speed up your investigations, is that we collect the master file in two different ways. We collect it as a CSV or the raw MFT, if you want to examine the raw MFT. Of course, as a CSV file, this is particularly useful for investigators because it's immediately humanly readable. So you can really get down into the weeds very quickly, but in a way in which is actually very easy to investigate. You don't need any specific other tools to look at that MFT, as it's actually readable for you right there and then. So the other way in which you might want to do is, rather than waiting for triggers, is you can actually schedule your collections as well. So if you look at a particular instance here, if we come to our assets, and let's imagine we're looking at, say, a couple of assets. I will say I wanted to look at this asset here and this asset here. What you'll notice is that as soon as I select more than one, we have some assets appear down here. and 2 in my bulk action bar. So 2 are selected right now. So those 2, I could go and acquire evidence from them, or I could go and triage those. Now, what will happen as a result of our activity, once the collection has taken place, if you've chosen to run the automatic drone analyzer across that particular device or asset or any number of assets, you'll end up with a report that will look something like this. So if I just come to this particular report here, this is generated on the fly. And this is just one example of one tasking report against one asset. It is possible to get within our investigation hub, if I come back to here and look at a particular case from the main menu. So if I select this case at the bottom of my page here called day 1, if I look within the case here, this is a particularly big case. You can see exactly what's happened in the case, the number of acquisitions that we've carried out in this case, the number of triages that have been run, the number of comparisons that have been run. All of these things are gathered together in what we call the investigation hub. This is a central place, a single pane of glass that will give you an immediate view of everything that's happened in respect of that entire case. So this report is being built on the fly, live. So what that means is that every time I add to this case, it'll be updated. So you won't have to be dealing with flat reports that are dead or historic. This is a live report. And you can see from here, in the very top view, you can get an overview of what's actually happened here. And in fact, as a way of demonstrating that this is a live and ongoing case, we're still waiting for one report at the moment. You can see that there's 198 reports, but we've only got 197 loaded. So one report is still being added to this investigation hub. And you can imagine that if you came in as an analyst in the SOC, you came in the morning, and this is what you would see. Potentially, this is what you see if there'd been an incident overnight. AIR would have automatically collected evidence based on the predetermined acquisition profiles that you've set up, and as soon as it got that alert from the EDR, it's carried out the collection of evidence, it's carried out the analysis of evidence, and it's built this report, giving you immediate access to your worst affected assets. So here we can see 3 assets are listed, and it's giving us a visual representation of the problems across those assets. I could choose to investigate those using the MITRE ATT&CK framework by coming to this middle section, or I could just jump straight in and start with anything that's flagged as dangerous. If I sort by the severity of the incident, I could just look at all of the items that have been marked as dangerous. And in fact, I hadn't spotted this before, but just casually looking over here, I can see something has been flagged up as being involved in Mimikatz. But let's just jump back quickly. I know time's short, but if we jump back quickly to this single report, because this is a really a clearer way of demonstrating this in simple terms. This is one tasking against one asset. And you can see in this particular case, 4 things have been described as being dangerous. No keywords have matched because I didn't actually put any keywords in this particular query. There's some suspicious and some rare and some relevant items here. So I could decide, you know what, I'm going to start here and just investigate these 4 dangerous things. And in fact, that's what's highlighted. And when I look at these 4 dangerous things, just by scanning around very quickly, with no additional clicking, you can see immediately there's some rules here that have been triggered by our DFIR threat hunting lab at Binalyze. So these are Yara scans that have resulted in some MITRE ATT&CK mapped findings, which reveal an executable. In fact, when we look at this, you can see immediately that this executable is running from the temp folder. So this is going to be something that I'm going to be interested in. So how would I investigate this? Well, you can choose different ways. You could do as I just suggested, coming to the immediate findings, or I could actually just look at every single MITRE ATT&CK result, because this is a kind of a nice way of tracking the issue, the attack through the system. And one of the things I like to do is potentially start with initial access. So if I select initial access here, immediately displaying for you down below are the two items that have been determined as being involved with initial access. So again, I can see that the DFIR lab have written a rule that's detected a password protected zip file. Interestingly enough, when I look at it over here, I can see that this is actually a password protected zip file that's now in the recycle bin. So this might send your mind racing immediately. So by selecting on one of these, select this top one, and I come down to the bottom window, which gives us a little bit more detail about this finding. I can see, yes, it's a password protected zip. I can see there's its name in the actual recycle bin with a $sign in front of it there. You can see when we come down here, the all-important hash value. This is great news. So we've got something that we're suspicious of. We've got a hash value now that we're interested in. I could immediately copy this hash value and go straight back to my console and triage my thousands of assets. Within a minute or two, you could very quickly write a triage rule to search for this particular hash value. In the short term, though, what I could do is take that hash value and actually search it in my report. Up here in the top, you'll see there's a global search box. If I just drop that into here, this is kind of neat because, and hit enter, immediately what I'm going to be able to do is search this report that I'm working on now for this hash value to see if there's any trace of this hash value in this report. Remember, this is only one report for one tasking on one asset. So this is very granular searching. So what's interesting in this particular example is I've 3 hits in my event records list for this hash value. So if I click on that right now, that takes me to my event records list, and I can see the entries associated with that. So if I just click on the first one, which is already highlighted for me, and I scroll down, I can get some details about that particular, the hash value that's seen in that report. Let's come back out of there. And just try and make my screen size a bit bigger. I don't know how clear that is for you guys. Is it relatively clear? Kind of hope so.
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Thank you. Thanks. So when we come back to our report here, if I come back to my initial access, let me just try this once more, and I'm going to drop into here, and I'm going to select this. Here we go. We can see the hash value again. Let me just take this additional hash value here from this password protected zip, copy this, and again, come up to here. I can just delete the previous one out of here and paste in the new one exactly like that. Hit enter. And we're just going to have a quick search across here. And so then I could actually go into the event records list and look at everywhere that the hash value has appeared. And you can see down here on the left-hand side where this is a list of all of the evidence items that were collected or attempted to be collected from this particular tasking assignment. And you can see that those 3 hits for the hash value are revealed in this particular list here. So I could take that on to the next stage and design that tasking triage rule if I wanted to do that. So I might then decide to move along the whole MITRE ATT&CK framework and look at execution. And you could look at to see how this was executed. Most of the time, if you've got an execution, then you're actually going to be looking more towards what the next step would be, which is persistence. So if I selected persistence, you can see the window down here focuses on persistence mechanisms that have been identified. So perhaps let's just do one more example here. And if we take the top one, for instance, we can see that there's a local user creation has taken place. Of course, this is going to be very relevant potentially to any investigation. If someone has tried to create a user on that machine, that's that first step, if you like, towards achieving persistence on the actual asset. And so when I look at the details associated with this, indeed, I can see that someone has created a username called ABX here. Obviously created for the benefit of the demo. It's made to stand out with a name like that, but it's jumping out at us right here that this particular individual has decided to create a user called ABX, and so on. So this is really what this is actually doing. What our investigation hub is doing here is actually putting on a platter for the investigator all of the artifacts that are suspicious or relevant or marked as dangerous based on the way in which our drone scores and gives findings to results like this. And then it maps every single one of them to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. So you can track the progress of the attacker's actions through the framework, right through to defense evasion and then credential access. And because my screen's small, I can scroll over a little bit further, but you can then get towards the end of the framework and start to consider how have they attempted lateral movement. So this is a really nice way of investigating those. It's almost like picking off the low-hanging fruit. That's what the platform is doing for us here. It's actually serving up this wonderful array of artifacts and breadcrumbs that have been left by the attacker. And I fear I've gone over my time already. Perhaps there's some questions. That would be great to take some questions.
Cool. Thank you so much, Tim. We do have a few questions from our audience. The first question would be, how is binary AIR actually different when compared to some of the more traditional forensic tools out there?
Well, that's a great question, and for me, there's a huge difference, and I can best answer this by talking about speed, remote capability, and ability to scale. And what binary AIR is doing compared to traditional forensics, which is sort of my background, is it's cutting out all of that noise and it's focusing on the actual signal. So what do I mean by that? Traditional forensics meant we spent an awful lot of time imaging hard drives, putting them into huge databases, grinding through all of the artifacts, and eventually coming to some kind of result or finding. But that involved a lot of processing power, it involved a lot of time, and it involved sending people to locations to carry out the physical work. We can achieve, as you know, we can achieve that now remotely. We can achieve it very quickly. And with our post-collection analyzers, drone and our MITRE ATT&CK scanners, we can actually get to those results and serve them up, as we still have on the screen right now, in a way in which makes them immediately accessible within minutes rather than days or weeks. You know, I remember times when we used to image, say, a terabyte hard drive, bring that back, process it in our existing forensic tools, and you could be waiting 2 days before that evidence is presented to you. And even when it's presented to you, the tools were never highlighting issues. They were never applying any automated technology across them to give you indications as where to look, which is of course what drone is doing for us here within AIR.
Got it. So the main use, I guess, is that practitioners will be able to reduce both the collection time as well as the analysis time. So it's very much also productivity aid for the day-to-day. Yeah.
Absolutely. And of course, you know, by focusing on collecting the meaningful artifacts rather than the artifacts that we know are very unlikely to give you any benefit, you can really reduce that mean time to resolution. And also, of course, being a remote collection tool, if you do decide you need to go back, if you do identify a machine that's particularly important to you and your policy requires a full disk image, you can still do that remotely using the AIR platform.
Got it. I'd love to pose this question to Julie as well. How for you, Julie? How has the platform been, I guess, different from other tools you've used in the past or are using?
Yeah, I guess two things. Most traditional forensic tools were created for diagnostic purposes. There are very few tools out there that are actually made for us investigators, and that reflects on how the artifacts are presented. What Tim said with regards to drone. Um, Also, they are not made for cyber cases. So they were made for digital forensics cases that are very focused on single endpoint or hosts. They are focused on single server acquisitions. They're just not scalable at all for the kinds of cases that we are dealing with now. So in that regard, just in pure evidence acquisition portion, it's significant. Personally, the best times I've had was traditionally for a server, it takes us image. Just do triage. It's not even image because triage is the faster version of imaging. So it takes us 2 hours to image a server. With Finalize, it takes us what, 15, 20 minutes?
Yep.
That's just acquisition. And then the processing time is also cut through. So we also have that um, as an additional plus point.
Got it. Got it. Cool. Very, very good insights. And I'll just open it up to any of the speakers. What you find is the difference between the Binalize platform as well as EDR. Tim, you want to go?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. I mean, EDR solutions have evolved tremendously over the years, but they're not true investigative platforms. They don't give you the kind of capability that you get with the Air platform. They're very, very good at detecting. They're very, very good at giving alerts, but they're not very good at giving that deep level forensic investigative capability. And that's increasingly what we find more relevant in our space right now. We need to be able to get to the bottom of what has actually happened in some of these incidents so that we can remediate appropriately. With an alert, a bare bones alert, that's great if all you're planning to do is just switch off the bad machine, for instance. Whereas if you want to achieve a little bit more and put you in a stronger position so that you can actually remediate more thoroughly, you need a deeper level of forensic visibility solution, and that's what AIR gives you.
Got it. Cool. Thanks, everyone, and thank you for all your enthusiasm today. We've run a bit over time. If there's no other questions, I would just like to add, when you have a chance, right after this meeting, just go to the Binalize website. You can just Google it on your laptop. Sign up for the 14-day air-free trial, and Melina and our business development team, our cyber consultants, all of us will be here to handhold you and show value. Really, we appreciate your trust, and thank you for joining us today. Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Good afternoon and stay in touch. Thank you.
Cheers. Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.